first read this poem, right, we knew that this had to be in here because of that idea of the parallel between, you know, childlike innocence, like digging your hands into the dirt, and then how, you know, that symbolism that as humans we have like so much power. We think we don't, but we do, you know.
Well, I also found that like that concept of you know, yeah, the opening, which is so kind of mesmerizing, like watching a child at play, which is mesmerizing, right? They're mesmerized and you're just mesmerized watching them be so in their world, their kingdom, their little kingdom of dirt and plants, whatever it is that they're playing with, toys sometimes. And then it's the kind of grotesqueness of suddenly that baby is enormous and the toys are these huge machines that are ravaging the earth, and somehow it's like something went askew in the process because the wisdom didn't grow with the child enough. It grew enough for us to be clever and able, but not enough to see beyond are the repercussions of our actions. And um, to see also, because I don't think I'd really ever thought, you know, you sometimes think of scientists who are involved in oil work, and you know, there's a tremendous. I think people often go into these things for the right reasons. They're drawn to what we can do. How can we do it better? How can we do it efficiently? How do we get more for less? And but somewhere along the way, some disconnect has gotten, as if it's kind of like a child transposed onto a giant landscape somehow. So I felt like that in the poem was just huge. And then Frank writes this almost intense rock ballad to me as a classical singer who never gets to sing rock music and who isn't really suited to rock music but who loves it. I absolutely loved this way that Frank just tapped deeper and deeper into this power of not just in terms of volume, but in terms of pressure. I felt the pressure really building in that that hopefully you feel reflected the cadence of and the crescendo that was within your poetry. It seemed to get very emotional, very big, and that was a challenge, but it was also like so exceptional to have that variety within the cycle. For me, I know my forte is miniatures, and it's always frightening to go full opera, even if it's full rock opera. But it was just extremely correct for the poetry, and I really I got so much out of it. So thank you both. I thought what happened between the music and the poem was an exceptional kind of vision.
Yeah, I fully agree. I mean, the first time I heard the song, I felt like, you know, it far transcended my vision for it in terms of power and kind of the journey, because there is that kind of crescendo towards the end, but there's still that kind of like edge to it that I was hoping to have in the poem itself, kind of the sad, sinister, but not hopefully not hopeless. I try not to write hopeless. This one is a little darker, perhaps, but I thought that the music brought certainly that melancholy, but also like more of a journey to it than you see on the page, certainly so much more. And I thought that was so fitting and so in line with what I was hoping for this poem, but just even more than I could ever do alone.
Yeah, but Michelle, I'm a little curious. When you wrote it, you didn't think like this gradual building of intensity, like this intensity you start from the innocence and that kind of thing? Because the moment I read it, I didn't compose anything, and I already heard the whole song in my head. It was like you constructed it for me, basically.
Wow.
Like that, the gradual build. like, so I'm curious, were you consciously aware of that when you wrote it, or did that just sort of happen by accident almost?
I mean, I think you sort of like intuitively feel it, and in
Right.
editing, you sort of try to start. You have to like be like, "What am I doing?" You know, and that's where the craft comes in for me. And I certainly think like I in poetry, you often think you need a turn, or you need it needs to go somewhere, right? It can't just kind of stay on the same level, stay monotonous. Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about that, and I think language wise, and maybe the third to last stanza, when it says like now a pump jack drilling rig, like the language gets really consonant heavy, really kind of it changes in tone, and that's where I was sort of seeing that transition. But it just feels like, you know, I was shouting in a whisper, and then in the song you really made it. I love thinking about it as a rock opera, right? You were like yelling in this like classical rock opera, which I could never do that on the page. All right, maybe someone more skilled than I could, but I couldn't. So yeah, it was just remarkable to see it transformed in the song.
Well, that's so cool. That's so cool. Why don't we listen to a clip here of Digging, track 3 from Fractures.
I learned and uncovered what was beneath. Now our explorations have expanded. Dinosaur bones, decayed prehistoric plants, turned thick black and settled deep.
and then all hell was going to break loose after that.